webinar, Hiring Millennial Interns, How to Recruit, Engage, and Comply. My name is Julie Dorr, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. And our presentation will last approximately 50 minutes, with the remaining 10 minutes or so available for your questions. If during the presentation you have any questions at all, feel free to type them in that designated section to the right. It actually allows you to type in the questions, and then we'll have them available for us when we hit the Q&A at the end. Today's presentation is also available as a handout. Locate it in the handout section again in your dashboard and download the PDF. If you have any troubles locating it or downloading, feel free to email me right now. My email address is right here on the screen, Julie@thedoorgroup, and I'll email you that document right away. Before we get started, please know that this webinar and all the accompanying materials are protected by copyright, and the entire conference is being recorded. This presentation constitutes general information only and does not constitute legal advice. We recommend that you consult with legal counsel to address your specific situation. And up pops one of our favorite panelists, Linda Duffy. Linda Duffy is she's the president of Ethos Human Capital Solutions. Linda works with business owners and executives to provide strategic human resources direction, develop leadership talent, and increase organizational effectiveness. We've also got Ms. Marla Merhab Robinson, an attorney with the law firms Merhab Robinson, Jackson, and Clarkson, where she's a partner and head of the firm's transactional department. She primarily practices in the areas of corporate, mergers and acquisitions, real estate, finance, and employment law. And with millennials now surpassing boomers as the largest generation, we have cross-generational communications guru Dan Negroni of Launchbox. Dan works with companies to build productive teams, improve engagement, and bridge those gaps between millennials, their managers, and the rest of the workplace. So we're going to get started today. Our agenda is simple but full of information, I promise you that. We are going to talk a little bit first about the laws governing interns, some of the things to make sure you stay in compliance, and then the majority of our presentation is going to be talking about engaging millennials, whether they're your interns that you're looking for and hiring now or those that you already have on staff. You're going to have some definite good information here today. And then we'll wrap up with the Q&A. So we're going to get started with Marla. If you want to kick us off here today.
Yes, thank you, Julie. I'm so excited to hear Dan speak on this issue. So I won't take a lot of time, but I want to briefly just talk to you about the law regarding interns. The one takeaway I'd like everybody to have today is to use caution when engaging interns. Many employers believe all interns are unpaid workers, and that's just not the case. Not all interns are unpaid. Most are considered employees under the law. So we recommend that you consult with an attorney or an experienced HR professional before bringing on unpaid interns. The policy or purpose of allowing unpaid interns is to give the intern, not the employer, practical work experience. It's not to get free labor. You should think of it as philanthropy or charitable work. So the FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act, defines the term employ very broadly. As definitionally, it's called suffer or permit to work. If you suffer, meaning you push them or you permit them even. Individuals who are suffered or permitted to work must be compensated under the law. Internships will be deemed as employment unless they qualify as an unpaid intern. So the question becomes, how do we qualify? When is a worker an intern? The Department of Labor and the Department of Labor Standards and Enforcement both use a 6-factor test. The first factor is the training. Even though it includes actual operation of the employer's facility, it has to be similar to that which would be given in an educational environment or vocational school. It's supposed to be an extension of the educational experience. College or university exercising oversight over the program will help with this factor. The second factor is the internship experience or training is for the benefit of the trainees or students, not for the benefit of the employer. It focuses on providing skills and training in multiple employment settings. The intern is not supposed to be performing routine work of the business on a regular recurring basis. The business is not to be dependent upon the work of the intern. And performing productive work weighs against unpaid interns. The third factor is the interns or students do not displace regular employees, but they work under close observation of existing staff. So you cannot use students or interns to replace or augment your existing workforce. If not for the students or interns, the employer would have hired additional employees. Most likely you don't have an unpaid intern and you must pay them. If the student or intern receives the same level of supervision as your regular workforce, then that would suggest an employment relationship as well rather than training. The fourth and most difficult factor is the employer derives no immediate advantage from the activities of the intern. And on occasion, it might even be difficult. Your operations might actually be impeded. You have to focus again on the intern receiving training and practical skills that actually draws away sometimes from productive work. The fifth factor is the intern is not necessarily entitled to a job at the conclusion of the internship. So the intern worker would be there just for a fixed duration of the internship and then leave. Now, that doesn't mean you can't hire the intern later, but it's not necessary for it to be an unpaid intern. The sixth and final factor is the employer and the intern understand that the intern is not entitled to wages for the time spent in the internship. You establish the expectations of educational experience at the very beginning of the internship. The consequences of misclassifying are great, and I neglected to put on this slide, I'd like everybody to add in that there's fair employment and housing protection now as of last year for unpaid interns and volunteers, protecting against harassment and discrimination. But in addition, there's unpaid wages and or overtime if it's over 8 hours in a day or 40 in a week. There's penalties on top of the failure to pay minimum wage. That's 100% of what was due. There's waiting time penalties, rest and meal break penalties, penalties for inaccurate wage statements, and then of course all the protections under Obamacare, Americans with Disability Act, and FMLA. Additionally, religious belief protections and religious accommodation requirements are extended to anyone in internships or apprenticeship programs. Your safe harbor, how do I avoid this? You pay. You pay the person. It's very, very rare that an internship is an unpaid internship. How can we know when it is for a fact? We'll use an externship with a university or vocational school where students receive credit towards a degree or certificate, or they receive some sort of stipend. A lot of schools have this, and we have even given you a suggestion here on the next slide for an internship program at Saddleback Community College. This one will ensure that if you use this program that your intern can be unpaid and you follow the rules of the program. So we've got a link here for you to click on that and get some additional information. And with that, I will turn it over to Dan. Dan, are you there?
I'm here, yes, I'm
okay.
here. I'm just trying to figure out how to do the slides, technical challenge, because I'm not a millennial. So I didn't get the accepted code to move the slides, Julie.
Okay,
so,
well, let me move those for you then for right now.
Okay, if you move them for me, I will look carefully. First of all, guys, here I want to say thank you for having me. I still don't see it.
Okay. Let me try sending it to you one more time.
There,
I
see my slide.
Okay. Do you have there's a pop-up window that comes up that all you need to do is accept that and you'll have control.
I have no pop-up window coming up.
Okay, well, I guess what I'll do is help you out today and move the slides for you.
Okay, thank you. So guys, I'm sorry when I say advanced slides. Anyway, this is where I say I am a lawyer, but I'm thankful I'm not presenting on the law today. But thank you, Marla, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Linda, for having me. It's my great pleasure to talk about millennials. We've written a book on it. We totally love the subject. We've trained 5,000 of them, and contrary to what you might hear in terms of the opposition of millennials, we love them. I'm going to come right out of the closet and tell you we love them, and hopefully I'm going to give the information to tell you why and why that would affect interns and so on and so forth. How did I get to do this? Mostly, I'm a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur, I practiced law for about 10 years, And I own my own millennials, a very purposeful reason to getting into this business. And when my kids were looking for internships, paid, not unpaid, but that's because that was the rule in our house. Nonetheless, they did not know how to connect with the next generation. And I was shocked that they went to the best prep school and the best college, and they still were unable to connect. And the second reason was I had a job. And at that job, I had a business where I had 4,000 employees, and half of them were millennials. And we were doing a really, really, really bad job of being able to connect with those millennials. And I wondered why. And I wondered why and started to study it. And I started to study the history, and I realized that the place where youth and experience meet were magic. Youth, we attract to curiosity, innovation, provocation. We all want to be younger. And experience, knowledge, time served, education, content, context. The place where they met in companies were the places that they were really succeeding. For example, Google, Larry and Sergey for a time brought in Eric, right? And we can go on and on. Look at Uber and then bringing in seasoned executives. So we needed to figure out a way to bridge the gap, and hopefully some of the things we'll talk about today will help you do that with your interns and with your millennials. Next slide, please. Julie?
Dan, it is moving. It's just taking a little while for it to move. So.
Okay, there we go. Okay,
there you go.
It's taken a little while. So again, I am more like a millennial. I'm impatient. What the heck is a millennial? Let's do this quickly. I'll do it quickly, and Julie, everyone take a look at the slide, and I'll give you the statistics, and we can switch it to the next slide while we're going. But generally, they're born between 1980 and 2000, and I know the numbers do not work out. They're usually between 19 and 35 years old, but technically the generation is between 15 and 35. They're the largest generation ever, the most studied, the most talked about, the most complained about, as you will hear. They are your managers, they're your employees, they're your clients, and they're going to be your interns. We wanted to make sure that because it was such a big group, that we were finding a way to connect the workplace. Like I said, where youth and experience meet is where magic occurs. And so we wanted to make sure that businesses could be effective. And the problem is this: if we are not engaged in our businesses, and actually it says 7 out of 10, this is a Gallup study, are disengaged or actively disengaged, and the number's even higher for millennials. $450 billion worth of cost, and most C-suite executives, much like myself when I had that business, are really concerned about the talent all day long walking out the doors. But yet only 22.9% of them actually have a plan to engage the next generation. It's a big challenge, and it's costing us money. It's costing us a lot of money. The average tenure for a millennial is 2 years. My own 24-year-old Zach, who I tell the story in the book, is on his 3rd job since he graduated. All great jobs, but he's on his 3rd job for reasons. Reasons about him and reasons about the workplace that we need to figure out how to fix. The average cost of replacing a millennial is about $24,000. And I see you're from a wide variety of industries, and I know that in certain industries, $24,000 doesn't even begin to talk to the replacement cost. And the challenge is the number one reason people are leaving their jobs are they can't get along with their bosses. And so today we're hopefully going to work through the model of how do we get along and understand millennials. And so there's some statistics that are about how powerful millennials have become in the workplace. And you will see that 2.4 billion millennials exist. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't look at the advancing. Well, let me tell you this before I go to millennial power. This is not a new problem. I show you a picture there. I'm sorry, Julie, we're on the Socrates slide 1. Not a new problem. It is a problem that's been around since Socrates. And if we click it one more time, I will show you a quote from that time. Our youth now love luxury. They've had bad manners, contempt for authority, love chatter in the place of exercise, contradict their parents, gobble up their food, and tyrannize their teachers. When I'm in the audience, I get to ask them and kind of provoke them who said this with the hint of the Socrates. But I just kind of went there because this is a 2,500-year-old problem, the generation issues. But something about it is a little bit different. And on the next slide, we'll show you why it's a little bit different. And that's what I started to say. 2.4 billion millennials in the world, 60% of the world's population under the age of 30. They are 36 to 40% of our workforce today, and if I could poll you and ask questions, we would see that based on the types of businesses you had, that might be even as high as 70%. Technical, retail, things like that have a much higher percentage of millennials. But whatever business we are, the average in the next 10 years will be 75% of the workplace. So this is a big issue we need to deal with. And they also control spend. They're controlling about $660 billion worth of spend today, growing to $1.5 trillion, that's right, trillion in the next 5 years. And parents will tell you that they engage their millennials with a seat at the table and decision making on what vacations to go on, what cars to buy, what homes to live in. And millennials have a huge disposable income effect on the economy. And more than that, there are customers too. And if they're going to be 75% of the workforce, imagine how many customers we're going to have as millennials. And they're deciding what businesses make it or break it. Look at Uber and what it did to the taxi cab industry. Look at Airbnb, now the 5th largest hotelier. So when people say to me, Dan, what do you do? And we say we bridge the gap between millennials and managers, they say, millennials, they want all the power. And I say, yeah, I think you got it a little bit wrong. They don't want all the power, they are the power. And so, next slide. Give this New Yorker a chance to catch his breath.
Yeah. And the slides to catch up.
And the slides to catch up, that's right.
Okay.
So how did they grow up? How did they grow up? Now I know where I am. How did they grow up? They grew up different than us. And the biggest impact, you can see the slide, all the things that are different. But if I asked you in an audience what the biggest impact, I would hold up my iPhone and you would tell me technology, and you'd be right. The rapidity at which the world is changing, the fact that I didn't get my first phone until I was 35 years old, 36 years old, and my son got it in the 4th grade, the fact that they've grown up as the family technologist, the center for attention, they've been encouraged to ask questions, trophies for everything, right? Trophies for sitting on the sideline, picking your nose, you get a trophy. Days filled with activities, not like when I was younger where my mom said, see ya at 9 in the morning and you didn't come back till dinner time. It's different. Everything's been scheduled for them. And so this information boom has really, really changed them. And the conflict is this. On the next slide, what we'll see is it's created a huge conflict on how they grew up. We hate them. Look at them. Look at that picture. Selfie-loving, picture-taking, completely self-absorbed. When they're done taking their own selfie, they're asking you to take pictures of them. Or if they're done telling you how they are, they want you to talk about them. But yet we love them. They're our kids. They're smart. They're young. They represent youth. They have goals. They are tenacious. They're smart. Smartest generation there ever has been. They have it right. They know how to do things differently. And they want more out of life. And they're not wrong. They love us too. We're their parents. We're their grandparents. We're their teachers. We're their bosses. But they're not quite sure about us. And here's what most of you probably know who Seth Godin is, kind of a genius marketer. And Seth Godin says this. He says that the plumber, the electrician, the carpenter, they come to your house, they fix a problem, they're in the cure business. The politician, the doctor, the consultant, their job is to tell you a narrative, give you the information, and allow you to make the decision that's best for you based upon the information. They're in the storytelling business. Truth is, parents, teachers, and bosses, we're in the storytelling business. But the problem is parents of this generation have never wanted their kids to go without. They've done everything for them. They've been in the cure business. And so they're not sure how much they can trust us because we've let them down by micromanaging everything for them. Usually when I ask the question to HR professionals in the audience, hey, how many of you have been called by a parent about a child millennial that works for you? And I see 30% of the kids. 30% of people that have been called by parents about their kids. It's shocking. That's the conflict. They're not so sure they could trust us because we haven't taught them skills. And by the way, we're blaming them for the skills that they haven't learned, that we haven't taught them, because we don't teach these things. Relationship buildings, all the things you'll complain, we'll talk about in school, in college. We're not preparing them adequately. But let me move to this slide, which is, it's really important for you to know that millennials and all the research we've done want to work for companies that stand for something unique and that they love and respect. Look at Nike, for example, where it used to be just do it or be like Mike. Now it's be like yourself, be your best self, right? Be geared for greatness. If you look at the next slide, that's how they talk to their consumer, millennials and everyone. Look at what they say to their employees. If you work for Nike, you will be changed forever. You will be changed because you will grow. If we can treat our employees as we're treating our customers in terms of millennials, there's a lot of value in attracting the right interns and succeeding in our businesses. Next slide, please. We actually took out one particular slide because it was a video, and I just want to tell you about that video. This is fine, Julie. The video was a very cool video, which I can send you guys the link for, which was a Levi's commercial. And the Levi's commercial told them this: you're great, you're the king, you're the queen, you can do anything you want to do. You're the solo act of a sold-out show in a sixth-floor stadium. You're the leader, you can do it. You can do whatever you want. You're going to be great, you're going to be great, you're going to be great. And then at the end of it, it shows the millennial saying, are you joking? Are you kidding? Really? And that's the problem, and that's the challenge with the generation. They want to be guided, but they just don't know how to ask for the guidance because we've given them so much power. And in addition to that, we're not so sure of how to guide them because they're so different than us. So given all those statistics, is your business immune from millennial power? The answer is universally no. Right? We're all affected by this. And the market is disrupting at alarming rates. If you click it again, Julie, you'll see, look what happened to Blockbuster. It's gone. Why is it gone? It's gone because something the kids call Netflix and chill, right? Netflix is no longer here. And then once that pops up, Julie, the next slide will even show us the market disruption is so great that the average tenure for an S&P 500 company in 1958 was 61 years. Well, today it's 18 years. At the rate we're going, 75% of the S&P 500 are going to be replaced by 2027. There are so many things going on in the world that are affecting millennials in the workplace and are affecting how we can talk to them and use their power to help us. And we're going to get there. Next slide, please. So our success depends, we can go to the next slide, Julie. Our success depends on managing, engaging, and retaining the next generation of employees and customers. How do we do that? I'm going to teach you our 6-step method, and during the questions we can go through real specifics on this, but we'll do it very quickly. We believe that to bridge the gap, there are 6 principles right here. And let me tell you this too, is that we haven't crossed out millennials because they don't like to be crossed out. We've crossed out millennials because we believe that next generations include the boomers and the Xers and the traditionalists in the workplace. They include all the generations. Okay? We all have to be different leaders. We have to teach differently, and you'll see from these 6 steps. So I want you to understand that. But beginning with the first step, which is really busting the myths. Let's go there real quick. We have to identify and break through the underlying assumptions and barriers that we have between any disparate group, and certainly between the millennials and us. And on the next slide, you'll see a clip which I totally wish I could play for you guys. If anyone's a Mad Men fan, you'll love this. But basically, the young lady that works for him comes into the office and she says, basically, you don't respect me, you don't talk to me, you don't thank me. And he says to her, what do you mean I don't thank you? Your paycheck should thank you. You should be thanking me every single day that I give you an opportunity to come to work here and give your opinion. You don't need to be recognized. Your time will come, right? Every idea you have, basically I own because I pay you. I'm not doing it justice, but it's a great clip. And the challenge is that when I speak keynotes in front of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, 500, it is shocking to see that that really is the prevailing view. I did it this way, you'll have to do it this way. Why don't you understand it? So what are you guys saying about millennials? This is where I so wish this was interactive, but the next slide will show you. It says, what do you think? You guys, if you screamed them out. They're entitled. They expect everything now. They want work-life balance. They don't deal well with authority. They want everything digital. They have different career goals. They jump ship if not engaged. They're not loyal. They don't deal well with authority. They want everything digital and want a question. Well, I usually ask, is this all true? And everyone that's not a millennial says, of course it's all true. Truth is, what are they saying about us, right? And the next slide will show you all the things they say about us. All right? We're only in it for the money. We don't recognize others. We're not tech savvy. We're not willing to trade stability for pursuit of passion. We're afraid of non-traditional approaches, inflexible, don't like change. The golden rule is I've got all the gold, I make the rules, so shut up, sit down, strap your seatbelt on and do your work and don't bother me. Which is how we are. We're inflexible, we don't like change, and we don't care about people. Well, how much of that is true? It's not. Just like the stuff about them is all not true. And we stop it. Let's stop complaining. They are different, yes. There is a big problem. They're very different in the workplace. They have different expectations and different needs. And let's stop looking at it as a problem and start looking at it as an opportunity, right? Not a problem we need to be solved, but an opportunity we need to embrace. And they are better than we think. And this is the exception. And they all do think they can be Mark Zuckerberg, and we can talk about that in the question section, but they are better than we think. And they can be rock stars. But guess what? The onus is on us to teach them. We say when we were young, we learned it all ourselves. And we know that's not true. We did not walk through, 20 feet in shag carpeting to turn the channel on the black and white TV because we didn't have a remote and, beautiful gleaming hardwood floors. They can do it, and we didn't do it like that, and they actually can be way better than we think. Next slide, please. Step 2 is we really need to care. The number one thing, you guys know if you're in HR, that the number one thing people care about is that you care. And most importantly, that they can tell you can care. So the next question I ask you is this. What's the single most important life work skill? And you guys have answers. You can answer to yourself, write it down. I'll tell you this. That's the answer, building relationships. The answers I get are communication, listening, perseverance, dedication, responsibility. But the real true thing is building relationships. And why is that so? The next slide tells us why it's so. It's so because ultimately we're human beings, and everything we need to do boils down to interacting with people, whether it's money, information, or power, or love. We can't do it by ourselves. So we have to figure out how to build relationships and how to get good. And that's what your interns are caring about and what they're looking for. Here is another great clip, which we can't show the movie to, but if you haven't seen this TED Talk, go look it up. It's 12 minutes long. I show 1 minute. And here's the story. It's the longest study on adult education ever. From Harvard in 1938, 75 years, they studied 729 men. They followed them. They took their blood pressure. They took notes on everything they did. They interviewed them every year. And then eventually they interviewed their wives once they realized that was important. And they found that the number one most important thing was the quality of the relationships they had. It helped them live longer. It helped their brains be healthier. And why are we not focusing on building relationships? From the very beginning, you have an opportunity with an internship. How are you doing that? An internship for someone in an intern is a cheerleader or referral source for the next 40 years. Why are we not making relationships matter in business? And I'll tell you why. We can switch to the next slide. The real reason why is they're messy, they're sloppy, they're dirty, they're hard, they take time, a lot of time. So step 3 is owning your own stuff, and we can go to the next slide, which is basically, who do you control yourself? So we want to make millennials better in the workplace. Let's start by making us more understanding, better leaders that question better, manage better, do all those things. Let's get away of the next slide, which is the blame game. The blame game does not help us. It does not help us at all. Blaming them for being entitled, lazy, in my day I did it differently, it does nothing. We need to teach. We need to lean in. We need to create the magic of youth and experience. Step 4 is this, teaching them about delivering value and to make it about others every day. And that's an art. The next slide will show you that there are really one thing that gets in the way of really being able to deliver that value as a true mentor and coach, and that's time. Look at the statistics of texting and emailing, and an 8-second attention span is crazy, right? The average office worker sending 100 emails a day, compressing 9 hours of data into 6.5 hours, and I would have been interrupted 3 times just this thing. So it's hard to deliver value. So how do you do that? How do you really figure out to deliver value? You do it by, how do you connect, mentor, lead, motivate, and engage those around you? I'll tell you how you do it. You do it by making about others, which is what this whole section is about. And we have a philosophy and a way to teach millennials. And when you speak to them in a way that they understand, they're great. And here's one of the things we tell them. Who's the hero of your story? All those tweets and selfies. It's not you. It's the person you need to make impact on. And guess what? They love impact. I'm going to stop for a second and tell you what they do love. They love learning. They love capability. So if you teach them how to deliver value, they will love you forever. They're actually more loyal and will stay with you longer if you teach them in capability. Other things they love are meaning and purpose. This is the next step of our system, goals in mind, G, which is creating individual goals for them, team goals and corporate goals, and making sure they're aligned, but also making sure that they do the I own it stuff too that we talked about before, and controlling their own selves and learning the skills, and that they purposefully lean into their career and opt in and take responsibility for it. Next slide. And you will see that here's another list of things they need: transparency, celebrations, innovations. They actually want to measure their success. And so we say here, let's go from smart goals to meaningful goals. And one of the things I do, and I teach them and they love it, is I pride myself in making one great introduction a day. Not a great introduction, but a meaningful introduction, an introduction that will impact people's lives. And that's what we try and do here. Those are the types of things they'll rally around. And they really do care about purpose and meaning. And hey, what's so bad about that? I mean, like, we really need to figure out a way in our businesses to do that. What's your why? I mean, Simon Sinek wrote a great book on his why. And then the last step is empowering culture and really creating a culture to drive results with those millennials together. And you will see, next slide please, that doing that is about what you can do with them. And I love this slide at the end because we're getting close to the end of the presentation. Let's read this together. I want you to be like my Yoda guide me where I need to go. Don't hold my hand. Just point me in the right direction and let me run with my ideas. Checking in with me along my journey would be appreciated. Sometimes you give me a project and then I never hear from you again. Not cool, Alyssa. I don't know what you guys think about that paragraph, but it bugs the crap out of me. And I'll tell you why. It doesn't make any sense, but it's just like life and what we want from our partners and what we want from our businesses, which is guide me and help me when I need it. Let me fail, but be there to help me. It's confusing. It's hard, but guess what? It's worth it, and that's what we need to do. And there are a couple of tricks on how to do that. Nice slide, which is we need to guide. They want guides. We want a guide. We need to be the trainer, the teacher, and the learner on both sides. And we need to figure out how to get it right. Next slide. So it requires a shift in mindset. And really, when we get to the questions section, I will talk to you about what exactly the mindset is. But you can see our principles of how to do it is to go from the inside out, and we have a very specific way that we teach that, to be real and authentic, to make it personal and experiential, provocative, and make sure it's based on results and sustainable. But it's all about being a great manager, and that's what we need to do. So thank you guys for your time. I'm sorry it was a little bit chaotic with the slide switching and the no movies, but there you go.
Well, they have more reason to follow up with you, Dan, and get the movies and, see more of you in action, right? Well, again, I want to
be my pleasure.
Good. Thank you, Dan and Marla and Linda. It's certainly helpful, I think, to get into the mindset of a millennial and how to work with them, especially if you're hiring them as interns. And I think Dan made an excellent point about those millennials will have an impact on your organization for 40 years, whether they're employed by you or influence your potential employees. So I think those are some excellent points. Thank you very much. And I see some of you are already sending in your comments. They, of course, like the presentation, but that does conclude the webinar portion and the content portion. So now we have all this time left for questions. So let me explain again one more time how you'd actually submit a question. Over on your dashboard, there is a section that says questions. All you need to do is type your question in that open box at the bottom, hit return, and I will read it aloud for our panelists to answer. And let's start first here. We've got Jennifer. Jennifer has a question about what specific onboarding practices you might recommend to get interns engaged right from the get-go.
Yeah, so I love this, and with many of our clients that are either hiring interns or hiring regular employees, what we do is they care about capability, and they care about learning, and they care about learning about themselves, and that's how they feel engaged if we make it about them. So we advise, actually, before even employment, we do a strength finder test, which you guys might know. One, it makes us much better at asking great questions to figure out whether they're really a fit for our organization. But the second thing is that it really makes them feel engaged and makes them feel like you are caring about them learning right up front. So any type of tool that you can use to get them engaged right up front, and principally engaged where it means something emotionally and about them, is a big winner for you.
Okay, good. Linda, Marla, did you want to add anything too?
No, I think that's a great idea, actually. My brain was spinning as Dan was talking about, how to advise my clients that are hiring millennials and how to get them involved quickly. And I like the idea of giving them some sort of tool to learn about themselves.
Okay, good. And this one here is for Marla specifically, I suspect. So is the rule of thumb, do not hire interns without compensation? Yes, no?
Well, if you want to be sure that you're not breaking, pardon?
They're just wanting black and white, yes or no? Gone are the free labor of interns.
Yeah, if you're not going to reach out to an attorney or an HR consultant, that would be the safest practice. Pay them. And if you're not going to go through a program like Saddlebacks, which is, very helpful because the school will walk you through what needs to be done.
Can I say something that's not legal? I'm not going to give legal advice, especially, even though I still am admitted to the California bar, I would say this. What kind of message do you want to send to your intern? Right? Do you want to send that we value you, we care, even if it's minimum wage, and we know you're learning? And how do you think they will feel about getting paid and understanding their value and paying attention to who they are and who they want to be versus feeling like you might be trying to get free labor? And I'm not saying that you might not be, and you might be the greatest place, and it may be the greatest experience, and it may be a cost center for you, but based on the dollars, I'm just saying what's your objective and what's your goal, and what message and what feeling do you want to send to the marketplace on those college campuses?
That's a great point, Dan, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I want to point out that a lot of times these millennials and others will beg to be an intern somewhere that's a great place to work, because they know it's a great place to work, or it's a product or a value that they believe in, and so they want to be part of it. And so they will beg to work even for free. They want to work for free. It doesn't change that it may be illegal for you to let them work for free, but so to Dan's point, yes, value them, pay them, even if it's minimum wage.
Yeah.
Well,
we have a policy. I'm sorry, Linda. We have a policy. We won't hire an intern unless we pay them.
I think that's a great policy. And I was just going to add one more thing, which is we hear this a lot when we talk about exempt, non-exempt misclassification and employee versus independent contractor classification as well. It's not up to what you and the intern agree. So somebody said this to me yesterday, which was a great line, which is the employee cannot allow you to break the law. They can't give you permission to break the law. And it's the same thing here. So it really does not matter what you and the intern decide. They can beg you. I just want the experience. You don't have to pay me, all that. It's not going to matter. So it's really going to go back to those 6 factors that Marla talked about. So if I'm giving my yes or no answer, it's definitely going to be yes, just pay them.
Well, and Emily raises a good point. She's talking about, interns without compensation, and if they're receiving academic credit, no pay is necessary because you're really valuing the worker basically with on-the-job training.
And Julia, I don't know if that's Emily Quinlan or not, but that's actually her program. If there's a way to unmute her, she could actually speak to their program for a second if we can do that, since we have a little bit of time.
Is Emily on board still here? Hold on just a second, Emily.
Anyway.
Emily, you're unmuted if you'd like to join us.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up a little bit.
How about this? Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. I am a professor at Saddleback College, and I'm also a supervisor in the Intern program. And I noticed that Marla showed a slide earlier, a screenshot from our website. It is for cooperative work experience. And we are very mindful of all of the issues and rules that you have mentioned throughout the webinar today, and I really appreciated that slideshow. It was very interesting and well done. Thank you. But we know from a legal standpoint, I'm also a practicing attorney and a former colleague of Marla Robinson, and we know that academic credit constitutes adequate consideration. And so when we're worried about the wage and hour laws and being in compliance with federal and state wage concerns, that academic credit is a sufficient substitute. And of course we don't want to abuse interns, and we would never send our students into an intern situation where they were being taken advantage of. But for the short duration of a semester, we have 8, 12, and 16-week internships, and they can establish between 1 and 4 academic credits. And when a student is receiving academic credit, legally, that is considered sufficient consideration in order to satisfy the mutual benefit need or requirement to avoid violation of rules. If a student is involved in our program, they're also receiving workers' comp insurance coverage, Social Security deductions, and all other legal protections. So really, when a student is getting on-the-job training for free, and an opportunity for real-world experience and resume embellishment and building, those are incredible opportunities. Like you mentioned, some people beg just to have an internship to get their feet wet, and this is an incredible opportunity and benefit for the students and the employers.
Great. Okay, thank you so much Emily for jumping on there and helping us to understand that a little bit better.
Okay.
All right. We've got another question here from, let's see here, Adrian. Oh, not Adrian. Adrian, just so you know, we do record this, and you'll see it up on YouTube in just a second. Celeste has a question. She's asking, what if your industry is not an exciting one? It's not dynamic. You don't have a higher purpose. You know, what do you do to create an environment of engagement?
I love that question, and I get that question all the time. And I think, you know, it's really hard to attract in the less, you know, desirable or engaging things. So here are a couple of ideas. You could make your workplace fun, right? You could make it look fun. You could make it be fun. You could make it be open. You could do coaching and mentoring. Really, it's about describing, you know, who you are and what the value of coming to your business would be to that young person, and persuading them why to get involved. And so I think it takes some creativity, and it's just hard. I mean, you know, there's a lot of companies with names that people would, you know, love to work at, and, you know, there's all sorts of different perks. Look at, you know, the sports industry. We were talking about the Angels earlier. Certainly the entertainment industry, right? And they're not that glamorous, but a real place where you help someone learn and grow, and have a cool environment, and then focus on what you're going to teach them, really teach them, and how you're going to make them better. Because as I said, the number one thing they care about is capability, and how you're going to lean in and guide them, and they're yours. People just want to know not how much you know, but how much you care. And if you care and can demonstrate that to them, they will stay loyal to you forever.
Okay. Lori has a question that I'm sure, since I own a millennial too, I would love an answer to as well, because they hold an electronic device, typically their phone, in their hand 24/7. I think my son sleeps with his. So in that world where, you know, maybe our boomer brain looks at engagement in the workplace as, you know, getting things in the outbasket, how do they do that when they got one hand plugged into their phone all the time? And, you know, how do employers balance and allow them to you know, do things on Facebook or Snapchat or whatever they're working on, as well as get work done?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So couple of questions, compound question almost. So one thing is in a world where devices rule, how do we make sure they pay attention to their job and what's focused? And that's about being a clear and concrete manager and setting expectations and saying to them, I don't care when you use your phone, but you need to get your stuff done, and this is what I expect from you, and I'll teach you, I'll guide you, you can learn from me, but you use that stuff when you need it only. And the truth is, engaged employees will listen. For example, many of the clients I have, my son will not answer his phone at work if it's a call from me. Just won't. He's like, I'm at work. I don't answer my phone when I'm at work. You know, if I'm going on a break and I'm going to do Facebook or whatever. But I just really think it's about communication and setting expectations, and of course picking the right person. Right? There's lots of people that don't focus, that are older, they may not be using their device, but they're using the internet, gossiping, talking on the phone, doing all those sorts of things. The other intuitive question I heard there is, in terms of communication, how do we separate them, attached device, and have them have real communication the way we like to? Either use email, right, God forbid, instead of text, or actually do it in person. And that's training. They haven't been taught, as I told. We don't have a course in college that really talks about that. We don't, and that's a great reason for the internships that Erin was talking about. And if you're getting credit for it, I agree wholeheartedly with her. It's a great thing. I mean, that's, you know, the exception to paying is it's a defined program with a credit. But we're not teaching them how to do these things appropriately, and we need to be.
Julie, let me just add, we've touched on this in our webinars before, but this issue of using your phone away from work creates wage and hour issues. So
yes.
The communication, as Dan just described, is critical to let them know what the expectations are and what they are allowed and not allowed to do. Because if they pick up the phone at home, they use their phone to send an email from home, they've just worked for you and they're entitled to pay for that unless they're an exempt employee, which we know most are not. So we're going to see a flood of wage and hour claims when the millennials figure this out.
Oh, I think that's a phenomenal point. When I was CEO of a company, we had that issue all the time, which said, well, were they independent contractors? Were they employees? What were they doing from home? If they had access to their phone and they were answering emails at home and they were an hourly employee, do they need to clock in? Do they need to be paid for it? It's a tremendous concern. So that is another issue relative to certainly work supply to emails, phones, all those types of things.
And okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add about the communication. I see this all the time. I have a lot of millennial clients, very successful people in their early 30s, and I have to communicate to them constantly, please don't text me, because my rules of professional responsibility require that I keep copies of our communications. And I can do that very easily with an email. But texting, then I have to take a shot of it and then send it to my email and then save it. And they understand that. They understand those steps, and then that's not good. They want it to go quick. So they're always very considerate now, and then they'll email me.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Thank you for adding that. And, you know, Mark has a question, and then I'm going to segue into Linda because it kind of goes with what she's going to be wrapping up with here this afternoon, or I guess it's this afternoon almost. Mark has a question. It's hard to compete when you have these high-tech companies such as Google and Facebook creating this like really fun environment with games and lounge areas and cappuccino machines and things like that. So how do you really get people to give your company that may be an older, you know, more established company a second look and a try? You know, is there a way to onboard them or do some other things that might attract them? So I'll let you guys answer that. And Linda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I love that question. It runs into the title of our book, which is Chasing Relevant. And Mark, you just asked me, how do I remain relevant to a world that wants different things than I'm prepared to give them? I think the answer to that is maybe you should look at what you're prepared to give, because if you want to attract that type of talent, right, you need to figure it out. And it is hard to compete, I get it. At every level, you know, maybe there's work from home flexibility, whatever it is. But all I'm saying is it's a great question to ask yourself, Mark. How am I going to remain relevant? What am I willing to do? I love that.
And let me jump on that because I'll take it one step further. I think it's a great question to ask them. You know, I wouldn't take a baby boomer and put them in charge of trying to come up with a creative onboarding process for millennials, you know, because our brains do not work the same way, frankly. And so I think, you know, the more that you can engage your younger staff to say, hey, you know, what would make this more attractive to you? What can we do that's fun? Yes, you can go look at all the things that Google and other places are doing, but they have limited ability to apply for jobs there as well, and that may not be geographically desirable for them. There's a lot of reasons they may want to work here, or maybe it's the type of industry you're in, whatever it is. But there's still ways that you can make your environment more attractive to them. But I would engage them from the get-go and ask them, you know, what would make this a more attractive place to work for you, and see what they say.
Home run answer. Home run answer. Love it, love it, love it.
Love the baseball reference. Thank you, Dan. So just a couple more slides before we wrap up. Just wanted to share some thoughts with you on just recruiting interns. Remember, as we talked about, we're really talking about recruiting sort of temporary employee for a short period of time, whether that's a part-time or full-time position. So treat it like any other recruitment. You know, figure out the best way to go to attract them, figure out what you have to offer them, make sure you're clearing your expectations with them. And then if you can, you know, go to where they're hanging out, right, whether that's college job boards or job fairs or on-campus events or internship programs like Emily mentioned, whatever it is, that's a great way to engage with them. Also, you know, build that network to get referrals. Maybe you network with professors or other student-type organizations, so when they've got a really talented student, they'll think of you and refer them your direction. And then finally, I just wanted to mention Dan's book again. Julie, if you can move it to the next slide. Thank you. I'm super excited to read this book. I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, but I want to make sure you all know how to get a copy, which is to go to Dan's website, which is chasingrelevance.com. This is a practical guide for dealing with different generations and working with them more effectively. And he said it's really super down to earth, just practical advice, and it's getting great reviews. So I would encourage all of you to go to his website and read that. And Dan, real quickly, just in a minute or so, can you just tell everybody, how do you work with employers? Like if one of the people on our webinar today wanted to engage you to come in and help them do some of these things, what are some of the types of things you do with your clients?
Yeah, no, great, thank you. I'll give you 3 ways that we do work with clients. 1, we do coaching of both millennials and executives on how to figure out the questions that Mark asked and many of you all asked. So we have a coaching and consulting business there. We go into businesses and we do workshops where we actually bridge the gap between millennials and managers in the workplace. And the second part of our book, the bridge model, will show how we do that with exercises. I know it didn't come across through the webinar, but it's really a fantastic program. We also help them do peer-to-peer groups of millennials, which consist of their customers and millennials. And then we do speaking engagements and lunch and learns and all those types of things with a variety of other people. And we have a piece of software that we're coming out with that eventually will be able to allow managers to coach and use all the tools that we were talking about to manage their millennials better. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
That's awesome. I would encourage everybody to reach out to Dan if you're having that issue. And Julie, if you could just go to our last slide, I just want to wrap up by, first of all, thanking everybody for attending. Here are our email addresses, so if you have any questions about hiring interns or whether or not they need to be paid, please reach out to me or Marla for help with that. If you want help about engaging your millennials, however, please go directly to Dan. Marla and I are happy to send all of those referrals his way because that's where he's an expert, and definitely not the two of us. Our next webinar is June 23rd. It's another Thursday webinar at 11 a.m. We're going to have another guest speaker, so I'm super excited about that. She's going to be talking about 401k plans, and the link there will tell you a little bit more about what she's going to talk about, but she is an audit partner, so she gets, she goes into all those companies that have a requirement to have their 401k plan audited, and she also gets called in when employers get that notice saying they're going to be audited, meaning by the Department of Labor. And so if you have a 401k plan at your company, you're thinking about having one, you want to know what to do to avoid getting audited by the Department of Labor, then Cindy is going to be sharing some best practices with us next month. So I'm looking forward to hearing her speak as well. And with that, I'm going to say, Dan, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us about how to engage our millennials. And as always, Marla, thank you for your legal insight. And Julie, thanks for your great moderation as always. And with that, I will look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Thank you.